Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. This is going to be the first of a three-parter on one of my favourite artists of all time, and that is Nick Lowe. In this first part I'll talk about the early years. Second part will be the production and rockpile years. And the third part will be the 80s and his resurgence in the 90s and onwards. So starting off, Nick Lowe was born in 1949, which makes him 70 of the time of making this video. And in the mid to late 60s, he was in a band called Kippington Lodge, which also featured a guy called Brinsley Schwarz. Now, Kippington Lodge released 5 singles, which were not great, to be quite honest with you, and a couple of those songs were actually written by Brinsley Schwarz himself, and he wasn't the best of songwriters, although Nick Lowe did get a writing credit on one of his B-sides. But those singles can be found on this album here, Hen's Teeth. This is a CD, came out in the 90s. I think it was the 90s or early 2000s or whatever. And this is actually very good. It's actually a good document of Kippington Lodge and Brinsley Schwarz stray singles. Now, this is actually quite difficult to find now as well, so if you ever see it, you should pick it up if it's a decent price. Now, Kippington Lodge morphed into the band called Brinsley Schwarz. It's a bit like Alice Cooper. When Alice Cooper left the Alice Cooper band, or the Alice Cooper band broke up and he went solo, he kept the name. Well, Kippington Lodge were sort of the opposite. They liked the name Brinsley Schwarz, which was the name of their guitarist, so they called the band Brinsley Schwarz. And in 1970 they released their first album. Oops, wrong way around. This is Brinsley Schwarz, self-titled debut album from 1970. This is owes a lot to Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's quite a hippie album. It's very acoustic. It's got a lot of sort of vocal harmonies. It's actually a very strong album. The single was Shining Brightly, which is a great wee number. It's like a medium-paced acoustic song. Hymn to Me is a wonderful song, but the highlight of this is a little acoustic ditty called Rock and Roll Women, which is actually quite a witty little song. Now, Nick Lowe wrote the majority of this. I think there was maybe one co-write on it. But this and the single failed to chart. In fact, none of Brinsley Schwarz records charted at all. So none of the singles nor the albums charted. But this is actually quite a good album, and it's a decent debut. Okay, in 1970 also, near the end of the year, they released their second album. And this is Despite It All, and this is a bit better actually. The songs are not quite as long, because there's a couple of sort of 10-minute long songs on their debut album. But this features the highly infectious Country Girl. And the song, I think also, while we're at it, Nick Lowe actually in the 2000s resurrected Country Girl for a few live performances. This also features the song Starship, which honestly could have been lifted off the Bird's Sweetheart or the Rodeo. But my favourite song off this is a song called Funk Angel, which owes a lot to Van Morrison's his band and the Street Choir album. It's very similar. Now, which came first I do not know, because this came out at the end of 70 as did Van's album. But yeah, this is a good, really good solid album. It is more or less country with a few little bits of pop in here as well. But yeah, excellent song, excellent album from 1970. He wrote all the songs on this, Nick, apart from one which was written by Bob Andrews. Now, the band itself, I should have said earlier, of Brinsley Schwarz was Nick Lowe on vocals, Bob Andrews on keyboards, Brinsley Schwarz himself on guitars, and Billy Rankin on drums. Now, did I say Nick Lowe on bass and vocals? I'm not sure, but he plays bass obviously as well, because he's a bass guitarist. But also in 1972 they added a new recruit, and that was Ian Gom. Now it was a stroke of genius actually, because Ian Gom could write himself, a good songwriter. Not as strong as Nick Lowe, but a bit George Harrison, if you could see, if you see what I mean, 2 to 3 songs on the albums. And he also could sing and he could play guitar, so it took a bit of the strain off Nick for the songwriting, and maybe a bit of a strain off Brinsley for the live performances with the guitar. So this is Silver Pistol, and this is probably the best place to actually to start with a Brinsley Schwarz album. This is great. This has got 3 Ian Gom songs on it. It's got Dry Land, One More Day, and At Range War, and the 3 of them are excellent, especially Range War. This has got quite a little bit of a country feel to it in some of the songs, but The Last Time I Got Fooled is a great organ keyboard driven number by Nick. Egypt is a very, very solemn song, very slow, beautiful, beautiful song, and actually Elvis Costello covered this song on one of those tributes to Nick Lowe. And then there's the beautiful acoustic Nightingale, which features on every Brinsley Schwarz compilation you can find. So this is a great album. And it's around this time they were starting to be regarded as Britain's version of the band, which I think is a bit unfair really. And they also got sort of lumbered with the pub rock label, which I also think is slightly unfair, because I think they were a very, very good, solid group, performing a little bit of country, a little bit of pop, a little bit of everything. So, well, maybe pub rock is actually a good way to describe it. I just don't like the term. So that's Silver Pistol from 1972. Also from 1972, they released this album here, which is Nervous on the Road. It's got the great Ian Gom song on it, It's Been So Long, which Dave Edmunds did for his Twine album in 1981. It also has the infectiously happy song called Happy Doing What We're Doing, which is great. The song Why is also an excellent Nick Lowe number, but my favourite off here is a song called Surrender to the Rhythm, which is very keyboard based again. But with this one, you can actually see a live version of them doing this on the Old Grey Whistle test, which you can get on YouTube, and it's brilliant, and the guys are having such a great time performing it. So you think this was a live album because it's Nervous on the Road, but it's not. There is a live track on here, but this is actually a studio album, and this is also an excellent album. So in 1973 they then released this album, which is Please Don't Ever Change, and this actually is probably their weakest album. Now this is not the original cover, this is a reissue from the 1980s. The original album goes for a fair price, but this features a couple of songs. One is Play That Fast Thing One More Time, which was resurrected for the Rockpile album, and it also features the brilliant Why Do We Hurt the Ones We Love, which is like a ska type song. And to be honest with you, if it had been released as a single in about 1979-1980, I think it would have been a hit. Surefire hit, is brilliant. I Won't Make It Without You is a beautiful ballad, and I Worry About You Baby likewise. The Ian Gom song here, Hooked on Love, was recorded again when Ian went solo after these guys had split up. So this is not their best album, it's probably their weakest, but it's still worth having. So in 1974 they released this album here. This is probably their best album. This has got so many different styles, and this is the New Favourites of Brinsley Schwarz, and this is very important for 2 reasons. One, it features the song What's So Funny About Peace, Love and Understanding, which was included on Elvis Costello's US version of Not My Name Is True, it's the wrong, Armed Forces. But more importantly for Nick, it was actually included in the Bodyguard soundtrack, and it made him a fortune. It was sung by Curtis Stigers. This also has the beautiful country song The Look That's in Your Eyes, tonight, and the Supremes type song, I Got That Real Thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful album. It's got a bit of 60s beat pop with Now's the Time, which I think is a cover of the Hollies song. And you add the new wavy of Peace, Love and Understanding, and you've got a fantastic album. So this is new favourites of Brinsley Schwarz. Now, they went in to record again in '75, but these never came out and they ultimately split up. But I've got this here CD, which is called It's All Over Now, and I received this from Ian Gom himself. I think he had a website in the early 2000s, and he was flogging these off, so I sent him an email, and he sent me an email back, and he's a really nice guy. And on this there are 3 very important songs. We Can Mess Around was recorded by Nick in 1983 under Mess Around With Love, under the title Mess Around With Love. It's a very, very good song. As Lovers Do was recorded by Dave Edmonds and used as a B-side on 2 of his singles, Here Comes the Weekend and Crawling From the Wreckage. But there's a song on here called Cruel to Be Kind, which was re-recorded by Nick and became his 2nd biggest hit single. The version on this is much different to the hit single version. This is very keyboard based, but it's still interesting, and it's still good to see this here. It's actually quite a good album, and this would probably, majority of this would have been their last album or their 1975 album, but unfortunately they split up. Now, during the Brinsley Schwarz years as well, as I showed earlier on, there's a lot of stray singles which are featured on this. Now, with Brinsley Schwarz, they didn't actually release a lot of them under the name Brinsley Schwarz. Some were released under the Hitters, the Knees, Limelight, and the Brinsleys. One in particular, There's a Cloud in My Heart, I think is absolutely brilliant. It's a catchy, catchy pop song. Can't understand why it was never a hit, maybe. I don't know. But to me is hit material all over from about 74, 75. So anyway, that's Hand's Teeth again. Now, whenever they split up, Nick Lowe wanted out of his contract with United Artists, and so in order to do that, he recorded a song under the name The Tartan Horde, and that song was Bay City Rollers, We Love You, backed by Rollers Show. So Bay City Rollers tribute in 1975, and he thought, this is definitely going to get me fired, and that's what I want. And he was called into the United Artists offices, and they said, we want more of this because this is a huge hit in Japan. So he walked away and thought of his next move. So he did another song called Let's Go to the Disco, which is actually quite good, and it's produced by Dave Edmonds, backed by Everybody Dance, and both of those singles are on this here, which is Nick Lowe, The Wilderness Years, and the Let's Go to the Disco song got him fired. So that's where I'm going to leave it for now. I will say that if you want to dip your toes into the water of Brinsley Schwarz, this 15 Thoughts of Brinsley Schwarz is as good a compilation as you can get. It's probably the best one, and it does feature There's a Cloud in My Heart on here, along with Funk Angel as well, my favourite, Shining Brightly, which I mentioned, Country Girl, Surrender to the Rhythm, which I mentioned, and beautiful song called Don't Lose Your Grip on Love. Well, happy doing what we're doing, it's not on this, oh well. And of course, What's So Funny About Peace, Love and Understanding. Okay, so that's it for this one. The second one will be the Rockpile Years. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to talk soon. Okay, bye bye.